Freedom of the press is given to us through the First Amendment and has been strengthened by the courts over the years. One of the landmark cases involving freedom of the press is the New York Times Company versus the U.S. In that case, the New York Times had published classified materials regarding the U.S.'s involvement in the Vietnam War. The Nixon administration claimed that prior restraint was necessary to protect national security. However, the courts ruled against the U.S. They claimed that security cannot be used to stifle freedom of the press.
The decision on this case set the precedent for future cases regarding the release of government information through the media that could potentially cause any kind of national security threat. Prior restraint was weakened, and freedom of press was strengthened by deciding that classified information may be discussed within reasonable bounds.
And then has there ever been like an article in the newspaper or maybe another kind of publication that you had to take down or stop?
I feel like there was, but I don't remember specifically what it was. Mr. Jackson does an excellent job. It really depends upon the advisor having a good person that kind of filters that and do different things. There have been some posters that kids have put up. We do ask that those get approved, and there's been some of those that aren't exactly the best that we've had to take down.
What would warrant something being taken down? Is it the content of it or maybe the reaction it provoked from the students or a combination?
Combination.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Have you kept a story from being published at Huff in the newspaper?
No.
Have you not kept anything from being published because you believe there shouldn't be restrictions, or nothing has presented that you think should have been restricted?
Nothing's really been presented. We got a fairly conservative, play it safe kind of group of students here. You know?
How about at any other school that you've worked at, not just Huff?
Well, I mean, the only other school I've worked at is Northwest School of the Arts, and we did have one story that did not go. It wasn't so much the content, though. It was because it was just poorly written. It was on gay dating. And it was the only thing that this particular student had written all year long, and I really wanted to publish it. But the simple fact is that one of the few ways that the administration can legitimately actually censor us is for poor quality, and the story was simply really poorly written, and so I canned it. I could not publish it. We worked with the student, This was back in the old days of print newspapers, and when the deadline comes by, the deadlines in that business, in that world, are hard and fast, and she simply didn't make it, and that was the end of it.
Okay. Are students allowed to express political views and opinion places in the newspaper?
Sure they can.
Are there any kind of limitations on how they present it?
The only limitation, really, I mean, the Supreme Court is not real clear about this. The Supreme Court has made some decisions about what students can and cannot say, and unfortunately, they've got one decision, the Tinker decision, that was very clear. It basically said that students, neither teachers nor students, shed their rights to freedom of speech at the schoolhouse gate. But then Hazelwood versus Kohlmeyer comes along and clouded the picture, and people hear what they want to hear about that particular decision. And administrators oftentimes think that it gives them free rein to censor publications when it actually doesn't. It only says that they can't publish something if it's going to present a material disruption to the educational process. So what that means, we really don't know. So like I said, the rules are kind of cloudy. They're not real clear.
Okay, and then do you believe that fake news in the press is an exception to freedom of speech if they don't have their facts straight?
That fake news in the press. Well, first off, I think that the whole thing is highly overblown, because I think a lot of what some people call fake news is actually just things they don't want to hear, and truths that they simply can't handle. When something is actually truly fake, we've already got safeguards in place to see to it that that sort of thing doesn't happen, or if it does, it gets punished. And we've got libel laws on the books where if somebody intentionally publishes something that's fake and harms someone, they can be held accountable for it. That's been the law of the land for decades and decades and decades. So this whole thing, this preponderance of fake news, I think is not really real.
Okay.
Now there is a lot of stuff out there that's misleading, that's for sure. but you have to look at who's doing it, because it's not always the mainstream media, the professionals that are doing this. It's people taking advantage of social media, looking like professionals, oftentimes, that do this sort of thing. It's not the mainstream media that always does that.
Okay.